In this video, we're going to be looking at factoring using a box organizer. One of the first things we have to remember is that when we're factoring using this organizer with this area model, the factors are the two side lengths, and those are the things that are multiplied together to get the, in this case, the number 32, but in our cases, it will be an actual trinomial. And so we're going to be given this area. The first thing that we want to do is look for a GCF. And when we do, we find that in these three terms, there's a 3 as a greatest common factor. So if 3 is one side, then now we need what this other side length would be for that to be the case. So 3 times something to get 3x squared, that is x squared plus, and then 3 times something to get 9x, that would be 3x, and then 3 times something to get 6. So these are our side lengths. So at this point, we would have this. Now, we want to take this and factor it further, and specifically this portion. And so what I'm going to do is transfer that over here. And now I'm really trying to factor x squared plus 3x plus 2. So we want to take that a little bit further. So one of the ways we've done this is using this area model. It's the box organizer. It really helps us organize this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the squared term, x squared, put it right here. We're going to take the positive 2, the constant, and we're going to put that down here. And then we're going to try to find what items are going to go up here, here, and here, so that when we multiply them together, we get what's in these boxes. Now this middle term 3x, it's positive. That's going to be made up of these two boxes. So the first thing that I start off with is this x squared, two things that multiply together to get that. That's going to be x and x. Now we need two things that multiply together to get positive 2. So we need a positive, we only have so many options here, a positive 1 and a positive 2. And so what happens here is if I do x times positive 2, I get positive 2x. And then if I do 1 times x, I get 1x. So when I add those two together, I do get the positive 3x. So my two factors here are, for this one, would be x plus 2 and x plus 1. And so now the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take our original one and I'm going to write it with everything that we had. So we had this 3 that was factored out, and then we were left with this. When we took that and we factored it further, we got x plus 2 and x plus 1. So ultimately what we're doing is we're taking this, we're factoring out a GCF to the front, which was 3, and then we're taking what's remaining and we're going to factor it using that area model. And so this is your factored form using the area model. So here it is in terms of what this actually looks like. So we had our greatest common factor of 3 that we factored out. So the step in between here was really this, where we had the 3 factored out to the front, and then we had this as our other factor. And then what we did is we took that portion and factored it again to get this portion. And so our final solution, or our factored form, includes the GCF and the portions factored. Now I realize that this problem is different than the problem we just looked at. The process is shown here in terms of something we can always go back to. Now, if we're given this area, we look at, for our greatest common factor, this is the next example, and we don't see anything that we can factor out. The GCF is 1. If the GCF's 1, we don't really need to do anything in terms of factoring out the GCF. We can actually just jump straight into our area model. So I go ahead and place my x squared term and my constant here. And then what we need in this middle here is going to be your positive 5x. And so now we have only so many possibilities here, but things that we do know that this has to be 2x and this has to be x, because those two have to multiply to get 2x squared. And then we're looking for two things that are going to multiply to negative 3. So when I think of things that multiply to negative 3, I think of negative 3 and 1, or 3 and negative 1. And I'm just going to start trying things and see what happens. So let's go ahead and try the first one. Let's do negative 3 and positive 1. When I do this, I get this to be negative 3x, and I get this to be 2 5x. When I add those two things together, I do not get positive 5x. So I know that that is not the correct combination. So I'd want to try a different combination. This time I'll try positive 3 and negative 1. When I do, I do not get positive 5x. I get just an x, so I know that that combination is not correct. So then I try another combination. This time I'll try negative 1 up here, positive 3 here, so I get 6x, and I get negative 1x. When I add those two together, I do get this positive 5x, so I know that my combination is correct. Now, taking the factored form, this top part is one factor, this side length is the other factor, so I have x plus 3, and I have 2x minus 1, and that is my factored form.